my experience, at least as an artist with COVID, really has been challenging, but also rewarding. And I know it's going to be a lot to try to sum a lot of my experience within that, but here I go. I'm going to give it a try. When I say challenging, I mean, I think the pandemic has put a lot of pressure on a lot of things that require us to be artistic and creative. Being in person, and experiencing different peoples and different energies. You don't, in person when you're on a set, you have your typical team, and you've been there for X amount of hours, and then you have different actors maybe for different scenes coming in, and they have like this new energy, and everyone else has been on set forever, and so you're just kind of like, oh, like, how do you navigate that? And now it's kind of like, how do you navigate that within the realm of digital and virtual, when we're all behind screens? And that's sort of been a lot of the challenge with being creative, because it's been limiting. But what's been so unique about that, and what's been really powerful in my experience, is that I have been utilizing that as a tool to be innovative. So how can projects that I've been working on and continue to work on try to be emotional, create the sense that you're talking to another person and not just sitting at your computer and talking at a screen. It's really hard, but it's something that I always try to really lean and think about with all of the projects that I'm involved in. How are we shooting this? What angles? What's the tone? And how are our actors and people are engaging with the camera? But to sum it up, it's been a challenge. It's been healing, but it's been really innovative. And what's best about all of that is that it's spotlighting art right now, which is really, really cool, because it gives us, our people who are creative, to be sort of the people who are spreading the information, who is sharing facts, and being sort of those community leaders that some of our community needs. But the spin with it is that we're mixing it with creativity, and it's not just reading something just straight out of a book or off of a website. You're seeing it in a documentary, or you're seeing it in a creative spoken poetry or spoken word, or you're seeing it in these episodic programs. And so it allows us to address issues regarding racism, police brutality, the pandemic, health disparities, health inequalities, through the voices and through the images of art. The role of creatives and artists is something I'm going to start off with, that I shared earlier with. And I'll probably say over and over again, but a friend of mine's by the name of Tamara M. Sibley, any projects that we worked on, or actually, let me go ahead and start with this. Before I even started working more heavily with video production and video editing, it was my background, of course, and what I went to school for. But I just got fired from my job. I was really depressed and really going through a lot of anxiety, and just really relapsing from what I experienced when I was first diagnosed with HIV. And, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do here. And a friend, Don, came to me and said, hey, we have this project that we're thinking about working on. It's a social issue-based project that's addressing, the pandemic and how it's affecting people of color and Black and brown communities, and through the use of art. And so I got the chance to work with him and then meet Tamara and Sibley, and working on that particular project was so rejuvenating. It was so healing, and I really understood what she said when she always says art is a medicine. That's literally what it is, and that's kind of what my experience has been with it. And I try to lean in with that, and I think as a creative and someone who's artistic, I think that's sort of the responsibility that we have seen throughout history, famous artists and famous directors and famous painters, famous orators, is that we have a duty to document what's going on right now, but we also have a duty to be ourselves, and be creative and witty and clever, in combination with with what's happening in real time. And a lot of that can be really uncomfortable for a lot of people to do. I mean, hell, it makes me uncomfortable sometimes too. And I think that sitting in that uncomfort is growth and is a part of that medicine, is a symptom of the medicine, right? And so, I think, artists and creatives, we have a duty to document historically what's happening right now in regards to the pandemic and how that's affecting a lot of communities and how it's imploring change everywhere, not just here in the United States, but literally globally, everywhere. And this is an opportunity for many artists who have the skill sets, who have the knowledge, who have maybe not even the experience yet, but they have the knowledge and the skill set to get out there and try something that may work. And if it doesn't, just know that it's a part of it's part of history. And that's where what I see us doing right now is we're out here administering medicine that is also a bit of history. That's also a bit of community dialogue. And hopefully it brings us ultimately together. So I think art is that. It's so many things, but the best way I can sum it up is how Tamara says it. It's the medicine, and it's been really good for me. As my business, Hopeful in Victory, it is built on and founded on revealing stories hidden by stigma and disparities. It's a part of my experience, and I wanted the cholera vaccine part 1 and part 2 to reveal the stigmas that have been existence since the dawn of time, since African Americans arrived here, in the States. And I wanted to also share what that looks like right now, because it's different. And I don't have the knowledge and the wisdom, and I wanted to be able to share that, not just anecdotally, but where people can understand, where people can relate to. And it's not just a Black experience. This is an experience that is an American experience, that I think everyone should be able to relate to. So the documentary was really meant to just enable dialogue, rooted in stigma hesitancy. This was around January, when I was like, oh gosh, like we're starting to hear words of more vaccination, like it's being test trial. We see that Pfizer's starting to do these test trials, and they're going really well. And they're going to have this time that they're going to meet with the FDA to get it approved. And so, like I sat with myself and just kind of like, oh my gosh, this is, I'm not sure how I feel about this, because on one hand, I see how important it is to get the vaccine because I want to live. And I want to be able to protect myself and protect my family and my friends that I'm around. But at the same time, like I have been, in other words, burned by public health systems, government systems. Like I mentioned before, and I speak publicly about this as an advocate living with HIV, but, stigma is a huge thing around HIV. And, just recently, in June, the state of Illinois passed the Health Bill 1063 that eliminates the law that people living with HIV can be discriminated against. They can be all these things stigmatized, further perpetuated by decriminalizing HIV, the only disease that's on the books, and it's not in Illinois. So that was a huge thing. And so I think when I first was diagnosed with that, I had the same thoughts as I did back in January about the vaccine. And it was really challenging. I'm like, I need to talk about this. Like, how do I talk about this? And the opportunity came to me that Arts Alliance Illinois was looking for individuals to really mobilize the creative sector within the state of Illinois, but also ultimately allow those creatives to make a statement, to share a message, to really step out into the light, put a spotlight on their voice. And I saw that as an opportunity to say, hey, this will be a great opportunity for me to talk about my hesitancy with the vaccine. I mean, at the time, I got, my first shot and the second Pfizer shot. But, I was like, I was documenting myself even in those periods of how I felt. And, when I got my first shot, I was freaking out. The nurse, I'm like, oh my gosh, like all this other stuff. She's like, it's okay, sweetheart. Like, it's, you're just like my husband. My husband, he's more concerned about the long term, but it's like, what can we do right now? And this is what we can do right now. And this is what's going to help us. And like, these are the facts, and this is what's in it. And this is how it's going to help you. And like, though I felt a lot better, I still had that like, oh my gosh, the long term, right? What's going to happen to my body? What's going to be the effects of this vaccine? But nonetheless, I proposed this idea, and I really thought that, hey, if we go ahead and we put this piece together, this documentary together, we need to make sure that it's not about me, less about me. In fact, let's spotlight the feeling that I had, which was I have hesitancy against getting the vaccine. And so that was sort of the thing that we kind of play with. Originally, it was something else, but it transformed into, you know what, let's give people who don't want to get the vaccine the chance to share their story, their experience, because that's a lived experience and it's very valid. And I think if we look at those experiences and that messaging nationally, it's been kind of taken away and morph into something else, why people aren't getting a vaccine, right? When we really have to look at like, no, these are actual people who have been harmed, and give my friends and families, my community a voice. And that's, what we did. We went and met with public health experts, people within the community, and then also historians to really tell the story of why all of this existed, how it happened, and like where we are today, but how can we get to where we need to be at in the future.
Hope is a spiritual mechanism that needs to be fed each day, even in a system that is flawed. We always find a different way. Thank you.
I'm gonna have to break that up in two because it's one towards legislators and then one towards, community people. And I'll make it really, really as possibly short and sweet as I can. To answer the question for community members, why I think it's so important to empower, to make space for creatives and artists is because throughout history, art has given birth to so many movements. I'm not a historian, so I can't name off all of the things that have happened, but I can wholeheartedly agree with that. How I got to where I am today is because of a textbook, and then also a cartoon show, and one textbook being filled with communication theories. I was really enthralled and really excited about, wow, we can communicate in so many forms. And then I get to start watching Adventure Time and Steven Universe, and really seeing how like the depiction of these characters are like so relatable, so universal, just the themes in them. And it really awoken something in me. I think it awoken the storyteller in me, that I have to be able to share my story, but also be able to share other people's story. How do I do that? And I think that's the beauty about art, is that it awakens you. It's sort of like a spiritual awakening. Like, you don't really know it's there, it's dormant, but then like once you kind of come into contact with something, and it's just like it just makes sense, and you're just like, well, I have to do this because I'm gonna go to sleep at night. I'm gonna be thinking about it. I'm gonna be at work thinking about it. Like, I got to get it out there. And I think that's what art does, and that's why I want to say to community members why it's important that we give space for individuals of all walks of life. Really importantly, right now during this pandemic, go to those spaces where Black and brown people are at, because we have a word to say, and I think it's important that the mic is there in that community. Meet the community where it's at, and then give it the space to create whatever that artistic thing could be, because it's not just our story, it's our experience, but within that experience is a story that we all can relate to. To my answer to legislators is, it's always not about the money. I was so upset with myself yesterday, or not with myself, but in the meeting that I was in on this committee that I'm on, and the thing that, we had this great plan of getting to zero and all this other stuff, but it's all about the money and where the dollars are. And yeah, we all have to pay bills, we all have to eat, we all have to make a living, and we all essentially need money. But you can't eat money, no one can eat money. So at the end of the day, it's not as important, is what I would like to say to legislator, because without art, without funding art programs, I wouldn't be able to go through programs that would allow me to explore painting, explore expressions in different forms of maybe painting, dancing, singing, all those things that are like really a part of mindfulness. And if we don't have that, we're missing out on generations, and we'll be missing out on generations and generations of potential movements, potential places or potential moments of opportunities where we can really evolve as a society, and allow art to move us forward. So to the legislators, yes, make space for people to talk about health disparities creatively, talk about police brutality creatively, talk about racism creatively, talk about environmental climate change creatively, talk about all those things. They can be used creatively instead of using a decisive messaging. Reach out to someone who's creative, and allow them to take that, and I bet they'll give you something that you would never expect, because that's how we are. We're creators. We give you something that you're not going to expect, but something that you're going to relate to and you're going to understand. We have a duty, and if we don't step into that energy, step into our truth, and speak it and show it and express it, then what is this experience that we've been giving will be? Is it worth it? Because that's what we're all here on this world, is to learn, to live, not to make money, not to make art, but to learn and live. And that learning and living is the primary thing, and that creating and making money are just symptoms of that lived experience. Go check out The Color Vaccine Part 1. I really do hope you like it. Please like and share it.